What's up, gamers? Welcome to Battle Mallet Podcast Episode 8, Arcane Implosion, and we'll get into why the episode is named that later. This is a podcast delving into the minds of four busy gamers, chronicling their annual journey to the Nova Open convention, the games that they play and love, and balancing life with those games. I'm Jerod.
I'm Trace.
I'm Jason.
And we don't have Danny again. Yeah, homeboy got sick, so he said in a chat this week that he could record, but it would sound like a goose that had learned to speak English, which does not sound like good radio. So he's opting to get some rest. So we're recording without him. So in this episode, we've got a recap of Trace's tournament. It went well. We'll get into that in a second. Jason interviewed David Cutts, who's running the SoCal Open Underworlds tournament.
Grand Clash.
It's a Grand Clash. It's a 2-dayer. It's in sunny California in October. And then the last section we've got is a hot dice section, where we talk about, current events, what's in the news, and we're doing a lightning round. And the reason it turned into a lightning round is that we've been hitting some Arcane Implosions with my new digs. So the move is all done. I'm in the new place, and for whatever reason, Skype and my connection do not get along. And I'm looking at things now. Oh, I hear some noises, so I'm still recording. So we're good there. So at any point,
disturbances in the machine spirit, sir.
Yeah. So. But without Danny here, we kind of cut loose a little and talk a little bit more about Underworlds, but we try to keep the episode a little short. But before we jump into all that, what's everybody been up to? Trace?
I've been painting.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, I've been.
You gotta get that stuff on the interwebs, man.
I will.
Our 7 loyal listeners want to see your pictures.
Okay. No, I've been painting a lot. Made some really good progress on my night list for our other doubles thing that we're doing, which is the 40k narrative doubles stuff. We originally were going to do some demons and demon engines and stuff like that, but Jerod was like, I really want to play my Grey Knights, and I was like, okay. So I ponied up and bringing some knights of my own in the form of Imperial Knights, but I've been working on those. They're looking pretty sweet. Testing out some of the new contrast paints on some of those too in different ways. But I'll post pictures of those. I also did some contrast paint tests on some other models. I've got some.
I don't believe you because I don't have any pictures on the internet.
Well, I'll put them up there. Painted Snurk Sour Tongue in about an hour and 15 minutes. Not with only contrast paints, but using contrast paints as like foundation paints. He turned out really, really good. I also started messing with the rest of the Goblin Warband. Painted the squigs. The squigs were super easy with the contrast stuff. So, but I will post pictures of all that stuff on the Facebook page within the next day or two. So
sweet.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool.
Overall, you're liking contrast?
Yeah. Overall, I think, for me, it's not a replacement. It's just another tool in the toolbox. I've been playing with it in just varying capacities. I'm actually, and I'll show this in the pictures, but I'm using it to like make a really cool like weathered gold effect on the trim for my Imperial Knight. I'm painting it silver first, and then using a lighter silver to kind of like stipple on lighter shades of silver. And then I'm going through and using Nazdrag yellow, which is like a real browny yellow color, and snakebite leather to really make it look kind of mottled. It's really pretty. It's not a traditional gold. It's not perfect, but it's definitely interesting, which is all I really care about. So
and it's painted.
And it's painted, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fighting the hordes of gray, one
Nice.
model at a time.
Yeah.
So my hobby progress it's been fairly light. Definitely been spending a lot of time at work, unfortunately, but did manage to get some games in of Underworlds against both Trace and Jerod and Jeffrey. Playing Eyes of the Nine, so still enjoying the Eyes. I also spent some time at Dark Bunny Studios working out the paint scheme to try to get it to match as close as possible with the Crimson Fists. I think Val, Phil, and Corey over there are going to do a fine job at bringing that army to Dark Bunny Studios kind of high contrast paint style, as well as getting some base coats and mid-tones that match the armor for the Crimson Fist. So they're definitely going to be different, but I do think that they're gonna blend well and highlight the army. And then also, the podcast is about balancing life and games as we love them. It was Father's Day here, a week ago, and I had the wonderful pleasure of my wife taking time to play Underworlds with me for 2 whole hours.
No.
And yes, it was fun. Like, we got up in the morning, she made breakfast, and she's like, babysitter will be here in 2 hours. We're going to go play games, any game you want. And, if I'm being honest, had I known that this was going to happen, I probably would have picked a board game, like a pretty standard, like trains or Ticket to Ride, something like that. But I just didn't have a whole lot of time to read through rules and refresh to give her a good, fun experience. So we played the scaled down version that I play with my daughter of Underworlds. She took me to the shop. We sat there for 2 hours and rolled dice, and by garnet, didn't she beat me the second game. She played orcs against Godshorn Hunt, and she made a couple good moves to get on objectives, and my last die roll for me to win the game failed, and she won by 1 glory. So
That's awesome.
That's
a lot
awesome.
of fun.
That is a lot of fun.
I had no idea that happened.
Yeah, Jerod did, only because Sarah called him.
No. This is what happens when you live in the South. You don't live north of the wall.
Yeah. No, I didn't. It was really cool. It was a overall great Father's Day weekend, and that was kind of like icing on the cake, and just wanted to save that moment for a time like this to share.
Oh.
Somebody's got to protect you softies from the grumpkins and snarks.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, we appreciate your efforts on the wall, Trace. I have done nothing. I have moved a bunch of boxes. Bought a house, I guess that counts.
Yeah. You painted. You painted.
Well, not
What did you paint?
not really.
The night before we had our dinner.
Nothing. I painted nothing. I completely replaced a sink in the old house. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't get it.
There was so in the old house, the house that we moved out of, there was a sink that had some corrosion, and it was to me to replace that sink with a new sink. And then I looked at the installation of the old sink, and it was grouted and caulked, and there was no way that I was going to be able to get it done in the amount of time that I thought that I was going to get it done. So instead, I sanded off the corrosion, and I bought some flat back Krylon primer, and masked off the sink and spray painted the faucet. And
Hobby progress.
It looked pretty darn good, I gotta be honest. So
it's funny how our hobby thing, talents just creep up in everyday life. It is.
There was a part of me that was really sad that I didn't have my airbrush handy, because that would have been really nice. But yeah.
I didn't tell you guys the other day too. My son's first birthday was the beginning of June, and Sarah brought home his cake, and it was a little broken, and she was all down in the dumps. So I took the bow was falling off, like it was supposed to be like Mr. Wonderful, and he had like a bow on the cake for like a bow tie. Mm-hmm. So I took hobby supplies, my clippers and steel rod, and my little drill and drilled holes in, put steel rods into this bow, and like put it into the cake. And she's like, "Where do you even come up with this stuff?" I'm like, if you only knew how I affix little miniature men together.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's just cool.
Yeah.
Cool. You replace a sink, I create a cake, all with hobby supplies.
Hobby skills, man. Yeah, everything is practice. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to getting back into painting. The bonus room that will be where I hobby that I'm currently sitting in now is still without furniture, so IKEA messed up our order.
Oh no!
So we were supposed to get it the Monday after Father's Day, so about a week ago, and that didn't happen. So it's supposed to come the following Monday. We have gotten more phone calls so far this week about the furniture and its delivery than we did the prior week. So I think there's a good chance that we'll actually see the furniture, but we'll see.
Well, good.
Yeah. So I think that's it.
I will say that in Danny's absence, he's been painting a bunch of Lord of the Rings miniatures.
Yeah,
so for those of you guys who are interested in what Danny's working on, he's painted a bunch of Men of Gondor. So
yep.
He's ramping up for Nova.
Yeah. So yeah, he's getting all that ready. Cool. Anybody got any other progress?
No, I think we should go into the next segment where we hear about Trace's tournament.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, we'll take a break and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to another cracked glass section with my two buddies, Trace and Jerod. So we won't ramble too much tonight, but we do have some great tournament recap action going on because Trace took his warband out west, North Carolina, to his hometown and played in a tournament. So Trace, what warband you take with you?
So I took a warband that I hadn't really played a whole lot of, which was Stormsires, because I was just itching for something a little different. And
Sell out.
Oh, whatever. It really was just because like I had been kind of familiar with them, and my dwarves are in pieces upstairs right now to be painted, and these are already they're just already put together, and so I just did a really quick paint job on them and took those with me.
By dwarves, you mean sky dwarves?
The sky dwarves, yeah. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I thank Matt and the crew out there for hosting that event, and it was nice to get some games with some old friends in. It was nice.
Yeah, how many people were there?
There ended up being 10, but the 10 was so we had some people come in late, so there was it was kind of wonky because we had some people that ended up having like just 2 rounds in the tournament. They still wanted to play, and Matt was happy to have them, so it was really nice of him to accommodate those folks who came in. One of them was one of my buddies that I grew up with, and he actually brought his 6-year-old, no, 5-year-old, and they played together, and it was just really, really funny to hear Campbell say, "Yeah, Dad, I beat you. What now?" Like that. It was classic. And I said, you're never gonna live that down. And I said, it's okay. I'll get mine in a couple of years, I'm sure. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, 8 people throughout the whole thing, really.
Yeah.
But it was more of a Grand Clash style format, so it was 3 rounds each. It was just 3 rounds total. We wanted to do 4 rounds, but there was another event that got scheduled that kind of cut it short, so we ended up doing just 3 rounds. Best of 3 for each round. My first matchup, I ended up playing the guy who actually taught all of my group of friends, how to play Warhammer Fantasy whenever I first started playing miniatures games. His name's Hank. And he was playing the Fire Slayers Warband. Yeah, the Fire Slayers Warband. So going into it, I was like, okay, I know from playing Jason with the dwarves pretty frequently, I know that if you can get Grimnir inspired, even just inspired, he's dangerous. And so I had to kind of play a little more cagey, which is something that I needed to learn to do anyway, because most of the warbands that I've played have been super just aggressive, and that's just a play style that I like, and so I played something a little different. So I played a little bit more of a kind of a balanced magic-y, but can still kind of kick you in the face if you get into my territory Stormsire's list. And I can pull up the list in just a second and go over it, but basically first game he won board placement, so I placed my first board. He lined me up kind of catty corner, so he put me in a choke point. It wasn't a full choke point, but it was kind of, I think we had 4 hexes in between. And he set up his models pretty aggressively, so that kind of told me from the get-go kind of what the goal was for him, was to try and get across the board and kick my teeth in. But his first, I drew the first activation, and I empowered I think I empowered Rastus first, because I knew he had cleave, which would be useful for the whole game. So that was my first action. I drew my power hand. It was pretty nice. I had Harness the Storm and not Quick Thinker. Oh, good lord. The Cheaters card that everybody's playing now.
Calculated Risk.
Calculated Risk. Yeah, I drew Harness the Storm, Calculated Risk, and Superior Tactician.
So let's pause there before you get into all the interactions. So just to go over the deck, which is different for Trace, is like historically has played 100% aggro, like very dice reliant type game. So for you, I think the idea going in with Stormsires was more flexible, and you weren't as reliant on dice, and then you could be, it's a little more forgiving, right? Like some of those score immediately. But your deck, for our listeners, real quick, was Change of Tactics, Escalation, Superior Tactician, Shining Example, Harness the Storm, Magical Supremacy, Calculated Risk, Fired Up, Magical Storm, Solid Gains, Sorcerer Scouring, and Strong Start. So
correct.
A lot of casting in there, but it was pretty
balanced. Like it wasn't
Stormstar, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it didn't require me to do. There was a lot of things in there that didn't require me to like actually connect with anything, other than potentially casting a spell. So like, it definitely is a little bit of a different approach for me, and having to really be a little more cagey in my play, which is good because it's something that I just need to do, and I think I played better because I had to just think, and I wasn't just trying to throw myself at somebody. Mm-hmm. But you know, it was an adjustment for me because I was still trying to learn. I was still trying to learn the deck. I played it one game the night before with you guys. So that was kind of like a test game just to see if I could even run the deck. And I played against Jerod's unbeatable Treeple. So
yeah, and then Gambits, you had Distraction, Hidden Paths, Ready for Action, Spectral Wing, Spoils of Battle, Lightning Assault, Abyssoth's Unmaking, Abyssoth's Withering, Sphere of Akshi, Sphere of Gur, and then upgrades: Eye of the Storm, Fanway Crystal, Glory Seeker, Great Fortitude, Great Strength, Potion of Constitution, Potion of Rage, Tome of Offering, Tome of Vitality, and Well of Power. And I'm sure that Jerod will post a link in the show notes so you all can follow along and not just have to pause and repause and pause again. So anyway, so continue. So Hank you're at the you've taken one action and empowered, and then Hank's going.
Yeah, actually, I think my first activation was to do. I moved through a lethal hex to get.
So cheap.
Yeah, to get calculated risk. So that was my first glory, and pushed him back. So I put Rastus up farther than I needed to initially, because I knew that the dwarves couldn't get to me in one activation. If Hank did go first. So my first activation, I moved him through the lethal hex, scored calculated risk, and then drew a card. Scored it, got a new card. I can't remember what it was right off the top of my head, but essentially I just sat. It started to kind of power up and get cards and stuff for that first round. And he, on his first activation, he moved up Grimnir, and his first power step played Inspiration Strikes. And I was like, oh, this sucks. Because I knew, even though he'd already activated, and now he's moved 3, right? So unless I'm all the way close to the edge of the board, he can still potentially get to me if he's got some movement tricks and stuff like that. So, and then with his next 2 powers plays, he adjusted it to where his other 2 fighters were on objectives. And he, at the end of his first activation, he said, well, these 2 inspire. And I said, actually, they don't, because the way that the dwarves inspire, they inspire at the end of the phase. So I taught him something about that, but throughout the game, as we started to score cards, when I scored my calculated risk play, I scored it and drew another objective card, and he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, that's how you score a score immediately card. So you score it and you automatically draw up. So I taught him a couple things to help him better his play. Ended up the first round, I still had all 3 of my fighters, and then going into the second round, this is the second round of the first game, right? Second round of the first game, he was already up close to me. He moved up, and I had put Amos into a position where to kind of block a little bit. So I put him between the 2 blocking hexes on the board that I had, so that if he did come, he would have to stop there or give him something to charge into that wasn't my leader. He domed her, which I was like, well, that sucks. So then I had to kind of shift my plan. And then once I got him committed there, I just started to move around him, and I started to shoot fireballs with Stormsire, and ended up scoring pretty much all of my deck just through trying to make sure that I scored 3 glories to get solid gains. The only one I didn't score in that game was Magical Storm, but everything else I scored. Which was really, really good showing for the first time that I'd played through the deck. And then going into the second game, he was more wise to what I was doing. So he still played aggressive, but he hung back and tried to inspire a little bit first, and then started doing his upgrades, because he had some score immediately that he was able to score with he had some passive scoring Fired Up, and what was the other one? Shining Example. So he was able to get some glory and start to tool up some of his fighters. So he equipped going into his phase, which was a little bit of an error on his part, he equipped the Fenway Crystal on himself. And so in my power step after that, I pulled up the objective that was right next to my leader, because I could, you kind of are able to tell where that's coming. And he was like, "Dang it!" So it was a little bit more of a cagey match, but ended up I still had Rastus and Stormsire at the end of that game. Amos got killed again, but again, I scored pretty much my whole deck except for Magical Storm in that game too. But overall, first game, it was really, really nice. I had a lot of fun playing Hank. He's actually going to go to the ATC team tournament with one of the guys that came up for the tournament that I ran. He's really excited about doing that. And so he was playing with his deck that he was going to play there, which was not quite as efficient as it could be because of the way that tournament is supposed to be designed, where you're limited to the cards that only one instance of that card can be used across the whole team. So, but it was still a really strong deck. Like, he still had some good stuff like Inspiration Strikes and some of the other key aggro warband cards. So that was a fun first round. Second round, I ended up playing my friend Ben, who played. Yeah.
Just to interject. So to elaborate on the ATC format, so for our listeners that aren't aware, American Team tournament down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's a large 40K event, and this year they're expanding that event to Underworlds. It's 3-player teams, and the difference here is like you play on a team, so you cannot repeat any faction or any warband. So if I was on a team of 3 and I'm playing dwarfs, like no one else can play dwarfs. And then also one of the stipulations is you're not allowed to repeat any universal cards. So if Ready for Action is in my deck, it cannot be in my other 2 teammates' decks. And then as you go to the event, you'll have a captain and you actually have pairings. So, like your captain will put up the first warband and say, Jason's playing with dwarfs, and then the opposing team can pick whatever warband they want to play against my deck. So there's a lot of strategy when it goes into pairings, and even more strategy when it goes into deck construction, because only one person can have those really, really popular cards. And I believe that event is coming up the weekend after the 4th of July. I believe it is the 5th, 6th, and 7th of July. Not 100% sure, but I'm 99.9%
July
sure.
12th through 14th.
Oh, 12th. Okay. July 12th. So the weekend after the 4th. Like after the 4th weekend. So 12th, 13th, and 14th of July. Just to give them a plug and to elaborate on what's going on for Shadespire Underworlds, because it is growing, and it's great that it's being incorporated into that. And I'm glad that Hank had a chance to test out that style with you. So game 2.
So game 2, I ended up playing my buddy Ben, who was playing Megor's Fiends, and he and I have been talking a little bit back and forth about just deck construction and all that stuff. So his build was pretty traditional, like very score immediately heavy. He did have some of the more static scoring at the end. I think he had Conquest and Denial in there. But he played really, really aggressive. First game, I won board placement, and so I put him not all the way diagonal, but just enough of a choke point to force him to come through and try and channel him through one spot. But he was still really aggressive, and so he came through. He came through with Riptooth first. He actually charged me on his first activation because I kind of put him up. I put my fighters kind of midway up just to see what would happen. because I knew that I could come back, and I knew that I wasn't going to get one-shotted really unless he had like twist a knife or something like that in there. So I didn't know that at first, but I was banking on the fact that he probably didn't. Came through with Riptooth, and completely whiffed on his first attack, and I had calculated risk in my hand. My first activation, move through Lethal Hex, because it's just the cheesiest thing ever. Move through that. Score calculated risk. Upgrade Stormsire with Glory Seeker. And then he moved up with Magor the next activation. My next activation, I shot at the dog because the dog had already attacked, and I was just trying to get some extra glory. Score Harness the Storm, which is cast a spell, so I got another glory. So I just basically sat and waited for him to come to me, and just ended up to where I was just doing 3 damage a pop with Stormsire, and would just block with the other 2 guys and just started pounding him with spells with those. Ended up, and then on my second to last activation, used Faneway Crystal to go into his territory just in case he had denial. He did. So there was a nice, glory denial there for him. And then second round, he won board placement, set me up square, and I ended up winning the roll-off to go first, and empowered Rastus with my first activation. And then in the power step, he hidden pathed the dog next to Amos, who was on my backboard edge. Next activation, swung, missed with the dog, and then he had something else where it allowed him to he missed with the dog. I attacked with Stormsire, and then he turned me, so he pushed the dog back into Amos and attacked again. Whiffed for a second time, so he had some bad dice rolls. Ended up, so the first game I ended up scoring, I think it was 16 to 1 was the score in the first round. Second round was ended up 18 to 5. So it was, my score, I won both games pretty handily, but he took it great. Like, I had some really bad dice rolls, but I was just like, this sucks. Like, I wish I could roll better. I said, I've been there, man. I understand.
Yeah, that was one of the things why you've changed back to,
just more balanced.
Yeah, more balanced, right? Is because you've been there, especially with Fiends, where when they go cold, they go
super cold. Yeah, I mean, that's what happened to me last year at Nova. Like, I've still had trouble shaking those games off from last year. And then, so he was great, and he's a relatively new player. Like, there's a lot of guys down there that are new. And so he was asking for feedback on how he'd play different. And I said, man, there's a lot of things that you did right. And, being aggressive and trying to use your movement shenanigans to get around is a great way to just do what your warband does best, which is get in and get busy.
Yeah. I mean, one did he draw cards?
Once we got later in the game and he started running out of things to do, he did. But most of his first activations were to try and position a little bit for the next turn. So he did a good job because he pushed everybody up together to where they would be he could handle different things with multiple different fighters. Like, if one went down, he still had other guys that could come in and still charge. So there was no lack of opportunity to charge there. I mean, so he played really well, but it was just it really just came down to, as all of our good games do, just some dice rolls that went cold, and unfortunately his dice rolls went cold early, and that allowed me to like kind of ramp up pretty quick because of the way that my deck is designed.
I mean, like, for the listeners out there, and when you're playing Fiends and your whole task is to kill, murder more, don't be hesitant to just draw cards. Remember that once you charge, barring, second wind or ready for action, like that fighter is then done for the turn. And most times you know where the enemy is going to be, and your deck, your ploy cards can be vital to landing those crucial attacks or doing extra damage that you need. So when you're playing a warband, it is my advice that an aggro warband, you look to draw cards. I mean, even in my Eyes of the Nine, which I would not consider extremely aggro, it is often beneficial to just draw cards. And that, with him coming in with the dog game 1 and him coming in with the dog game 2, he kind of gave you that easy fuel to fill, to build your glory pool and to stack up your fighters. So,
but one of the things about Stormsires just in general is like it doesn't require me to do a whole lot to get that glory train going. So like,
nope.
I just have to cast a spell if I have magical Harness of Storm in my hand, and that's a glory, and then that inspires a fighter, which will score fired up. If that happens to score, if I cast a spell with Stormsire and he's the one who casts the spell, I've scored 3 glory if I have Harness the Storm fired up and Shining Example in my hand. So like, one activation, I could potentially score 3 glory. It's just there's a lot of wiggle room with the warband, and I can see why it places high. I mean, pretty much everywhere it goes, because it's just there's just so many ways that you can play it, and it doesn't rely on you. Like, I kill a fighter, and I've done those 3 things. I've got 4 glory. Now I'm just like sitting here waiting, like balls in my court at this point.
Yeah, but after turn 1, right? So in the first phase of activations, the first 4 activations, maybe you do that. Like, fortunately, the Stormsire crew can generate a lot of that passive glory quickly. But at the same time, like Shining Example and Fired Up, if they were both in your same hand, or end turn scoring. So if you wait to kind of go in with whatever fighter it may be, the dog, Magor, like, you're limiting the possibility of them of attacking back, but still glory denial. Like that. I'm just trying to give tips to our listeners, and it's hard, without all the cards and interactions, but it just sounds like Ben may have been a little too aggressive right off the bat. But you are right. Once the game is a little bit like poker. Like, once you get up in glory, like, make sure that you flex that glory muscle. Like, you can play a little less aggressive and not feed into the glory of your other warbands, which is highly dependent on your meta. Like, currently right now in North Carolina, I would say we're kind of aggro based meta. Like, there's barely any objectives. Everyone loves the easy passive glory, but the bulk of glory is generated through aggro. But no, great second game, and I know Ben, and he's a wonderful opponent. So on to the third. You go into the third round, 2-0, 2-0.
Yep.
And I believe you played orcs, so I'm interested to hear this wonderful orc deck, because that's counter to what we play every day.
I did play orcs, and having played Jerod's orcs pretty consistently over the past 2 years was pretty good practice. So my last opponent, his name was Kevin. He's one of the other guys that's been playing Warhammer Fantasy for forever. Met him a long time ago when I was in like high school. Still playing games. Great tactician. And he really knew how to drive those orcs, and they played to his playstyle, which is smash him and bash him, right? But the thing that I learned a long time ago was watch out for Bone Cutter and ignore ignore Gerzag if you can, because he can come in and get busy, but at the same time, if you commit him early and you were able to like live through the first onslaught, then you can kind of just move away and do what you need to do, because he's not super fast, and he can still pin you in places, but you can get around him if you're paying attention to your movement. But first game, he came in really, really heavy with Gerzag because I just was kind of testing to see if he would. So I put Amos out in front because I needed to keep Rastus back because he's my guy that has cleave, and I knew that if Amos lived and I was able to empower her, I could get her to where she was on 3 damage just out of the box with 3 hammers, which is just crazy good for for a frontline fighter. So she took one on the chin for me. She took 2 damage. No, she took 3 damage from him in the first round. Was sitting on 1, and I empowered Rastus to get cleave on him so that if I needed to, I could get him in and try and get some multiple activations off on him. I'm trying to remember everything that happened in this game. My first round, I scored Harness the Storm and something else to get some early glory. And then going into my last activation for round 1, put the Fameway Crystal on Stormsire and bounced across the board to try and get some cheap shots on Bone Cutter. So that was my last activation. I went in, took 1 shot, whiffed completely. So going into turn 2, I still had I1 priority, so I was able to get 1 shot off again to try and see if I can push Bone Cutter back so he couldn't charge me. Did 1 damage, but he was still in charge range because of I think he pushed him with somebody. I can't remember. But Gerzag charged again and played leading by example to allow Bone Cutter to charge too. So there was a potentially deadly turn incoming. So when he charged, he whiffed with Bone Cutter, and since I had placed Stormsire on an edge hex in his backfield, I had hidden paths in my hand. So when Bone Cutter came that way, I bounced back across the board all the way to the other side and put him in a spot where he could start to like pepper people with spells and stuff. So just played pretty cagey. First game, I think I ended up scoring 12 glory to Kevin's 7 or 6. I can probably look up the tournament results in my phone, but it was a solid win. Wasn't super bloody because there was a bunch of people left on the board. And then going into the second activation, I played the triple damage hex board. I forgot what the name of it is. And I caddy cornered the boards to where they had to come through the damage board, which I knew he wasn't going to mind to do because he was going to be trying to come through the damage hexes to inspire himself anyway. Ended up getting I pulled a bunch of the spells in my hand, pulled it from the spells from my deck, and I kind of sat on them because I was able to score a lot of my score immediatelys early in the game that round. And so I kind of sat on those spells, and I drew when I scored one of my score immediatelys, I drew into Magical Storm, and so I was able to score that, which is casting 4 spells or more in a round. So that was a nice 2 glory score there. Bounced around a little bit with the movement spells again, or the movement cards again, and was able to take down Gurzag. I took down Bone Kutta, and I took down Haka, but not before Kevin killed Stormsire with Gurzag.
Womp womp.
So I was left with Rastus and Amos, and this just shows the strength of that warband, because those 2 guys alone, they were inspired. So I just put wound upgrades on them, put great strength on one. So Amos was hitting for 4, and Rastus was hitting for 2 with cleave, and those 2 alone were able to like clear out two or 3 fighters. They're just super good. They're just so balanced and are able to really handle any situation as long as you really think through your options before you do it. But it was a great game, and I remember the first game. The reason why I wasn't able to kill anything is because Kevin rolled 3 defense rolls on 1 dice in a row and rolled crits every time. So he rolled 1 dice, rolled a crit. The next attack, he rolled 1 dice, rolled a crit. Next time, he rolled 1 dice, rolled a crit, and I was like, God, I hope that comes back around to me at some point, because it was really crazy, and I couldn't even be mad at it. I just laughed. I was like, are you kidding me right now? But it was just a great game, and Kevin's just a great opponent. Like, I've played him in some other stuff, and he's just a real jovial player, so it's really easy to have a good time with him. But it was a lot of fun, and I really thank Matt for hosting it, and got to have some good games in and try something different.
Yeah, that's awesome, and you did it, man. You finally broke the curse of the Battle Mallet podcast and brought home a piece of glass. Very proud of you, and more importantly, happy that you enjoyed the warband. I know sometimes, like with the dice, it can hurt your heart a little bit. So it seems like this flex style of play. I shouldn't even say flex, because you're not playing objectives, but this non-aggro style, where you're not all reliant on the attack, seemed to fit you well. So happy for you, man.
It was nice, because like I never felt out of it, even the times that I did miss attacks, because I missed several in a row. Like, there was some I was just like, okay, that's fine. Like, you still got other things you can do. So I felt less shoehorned into just rolling attack dice, and that was something that was really refreshing to do. So yeah, but I'm glad I got to go, and glad I got to bring home a piece of hardware for a change.
Yeah. Well, good. That's our tournament recap. Before we move out of the crack glass section, I do have one question for you, because it'll tie into our next segment. So what are your views around calculated risk? In specifically, how do you think it is scored? Because the internet is abuzz that you can score calculated risk and martyred in the same turn by moving through and then back into and killing yourself with the damage hex. So how do you think calculated risk should be played?
I mean, I personally think that if you end your move outside of a damage hex, so if you move through it and you live and you end your move outside that damage hex, that's when you would score calculated risk. If you move through and then back in, to me, that's the end of the move. You didn't complete a move through a damage hex and live. So like I can see the reasoning why people are scoring it that way, because they've moved through a hex and survived and then come back in and then they score martyred. But I think rules as written, it should be you would score calculated risk, but you can only score it if you don't die. So you'd score martyred or calculated risk, but you have to choose. That's how I view it. The internet is all playing it the other way. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the way it should be played.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to get everyone's opinion. So appreciate that. Well, once again, congratulations.
Thanks,
on
man.
the tournament win. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. But when we get back, we're going to have an interview with David from the SoCal Open Grand Clash that's going out there in a few months. So we'll talk to you in a few. Thanks. And we're back. In this segment, we're going to go over an upcoming tournament, and I have a very special guest, David, who will be hosting the TO out at SoCal Open. Welcome.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So what dates are the SoCal Open?
So the SoCal Open is October 26th and 27th, and it's in Del Mar, California at the Del Mar Fairgrounds.
Fantastic.
Southern California.
Yeah, that's like by San Diego, correct?
Exactly.
All right, cool.
Stone's throw from the beach.
That's what I hear, and that's part of a larger event put on by Frontline Gaming, correct?
Yes. So I'm the TO for the Warhammer Underworlds, Shadespire Grand Clash there at the SoCal Open. The larger event is a 40K major. And they're also having some narrative stuff, Kill Team, a bunch of other things. Age of Sigmar major as well.
Well, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into some questions about Underworlds, here at Battle Mallet, we love all things GW tabletop. So I got a few questions for you so we can just get to know you as a gamer.
Groovy.
So how long have you been in tabletop wargaming?
About 6 years.
Okay, and how'd you get into it? What made you?
I stumbled across some mini wargaming videos on YouTube. I was building some terrain for a D&D game, and then I was in a Pathfinder game where we literally had one combat that took 3 hours, and I got like 4 activations for the whole night. And while that was potentially fun, I didn't have the greatest time, so I'm like, well, I've been watching these mini wargaming guys, so let's go buy an orc army. So I hopped in with both feet into 40K with
40K.
orcs
Okay.
in 6th edition.
Orcs, oh man, you're a WoG guy.
Not anymore. You couldn't pay me to push all those models across the board right now.
Oh, but they just announced today like movement trays, right? That's like you can group up 5 at a time.
Ooh.
Oh, fantastic.
That doesn't save the back problems.
No, that does not. So what, being fairly new, 6 years to miniature gaming, like what's your favorite game or most memorable moment playing?
My favorite game is right now is Shadespire. I'm trying to get back into 40K, but it's the back issue and 3-hour games is sometimes a limiting factor for me as a family dude and an entrepreneur. But my favorite moment was probably last year at SoCal Open, the Shadespire tournament, where I rolled double crit defenses twice in a row against my teammate Tony Field, who's also a blogger and a fairly prominent member of the community, and he literally lost his shit. He stood up and had to take a couple rounds or laps around the table to cool off, and it was just humorous that he's so much better than me, but those double crits and playing the game just turned the tide, and I was able to take it from him. So
that is awesome, and that's why I love the game myself. Is the dice, the crit roll, or how my daughter would say a critable roll.
Right.
Is That's really cool that it could swing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tony, you deserved it. Okay, so with Underworlds, like what got you into that? Like what drew you to the game?
We had a buddy who just who was like, hey, he just kept harping on it. Like, this game looks awesome. This game looks awesome. He bought everything and kind of showed us some demo games, and then we were all just like, well, yeah, it does look awesome. Let's start trying it. And I'm a little bit of a slow learner, so I got my butt kicked by my teammates for 3 or 4 months, and then I sort of slowly managed to start pulling out some decks and some wins off them. And I don't know. It's just I just like it that you can get reps in quick. You can iterate your deck real quick. You can test things out in a way that is it's time efficient, right? Like a 40K game takes a couple hours. Even if you're testing, you're going to re-rack after turn 1 or 2. It's tougher to the equation. What I like to say, the equation for 40K is like a whole gymnasium floor full of tiny little 12-point font, and on Shadespire it's probably an 11 by 14 piece of paper. Like it's not completely solvable, but it's much more manageable.
Yes, I would agree, and it comes down to time for me as well. Like you can get a bunch of games in a night, which is much more enjoyable. So what's your current favorite warband? Like what?
I've been bumping around a little bit, mostly because watching Tony, he's kind of played a little bit of everything. Like he won our local tournament here recently with the Sylvaneth. So I've played Sky Dwarves for a couple weeks. I just built a Cursebreaker deck, but I was playing Ghost before that. I really do enjoy the Cursebreaker, the flexibility of that warband and their toughness, and Cursebreaker can just hit like a truck, right, when he gets rolling. The Stormsire can hit like a truck.
Yes, they're very flexible. They have a lot of different play styles, so I agree with you there. I do not like the Sylvaneth because I have yet to beat Jerod with his wonderful triple. So
yeah, it's a pain in the ass. I've been the Sky Dwarves really. The Sylvaneth are so great at scoring passively turn 1 or 2, and then they can just upgrade and come in and wreck your face in turn 2 and 3. So
yeah. What about your favorite card? So it could be a ploy, gambit, objective. What's your favorite card in the game?
Oh my god, I'm drawing a blank right now. It's act again after a charge. Lightning reflexes, not lightning reflexes. What is it?
The act again after a second wind.
Yeah, second wind. That's it.
That's your favorite.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I like the objective where if you roll 2 crits, you get 2 glory. So Peerless Fighter, that's my favorite. Never happens, but I like it.
Right.
All right, now on to the juicy topic of the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Your opinion on a calculated risk. So in a couple things, like should it be banned or should it be restricted? And then more importantly, can you score calculated risk and martyred in the same activation?
That's sort of the last part is sort of a 10-foot pole. Like I'm not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole, but I imagine it will be restricted. I'm not sure. There's a certain amount of risk. And it puts most fighters within 1-shot range of anybody with 3 damage or less. So there's a trade-off there, but it is so easy to score, right? And it's that's the thing. So I think it should probably be restricted. Martyred and calculated risk, I'm not sure. I know that Tony's been scoring it that way, and I didn't even think that it wouldn't be scored that way. So I don't see why you wouldn't be able to score it that way.
Okay, I mean, everyone's entitled to the opinion. I know a lot of people out there in the community are scoring them together. So I just like to get everyone's, like, we here locally, we have not been playing it where you can score them together. Just because in the rule book it says that like a score immediately is like after an action, even though it is immediately. Much like Change of Tactics, where like the whole charge has to be completed, not when you come off guard. So, but
what about if, like, with Reavers, and you've got two damaged squares right beside each other, and one of the little dangle bros runs into the first one, scores calculator risk, runs into the second one, scores martyred.
Yeah, and I know that's the way people are playing, but I view it as like the whole move has to be completed and he must survive. So like the way that I interpret it is it doesn't score until after the move action is completed, and therefore you could not score both because he would be dead and not survived the move action. So but
fair enough. I understand that.
There is a lot of ambiguity in that card, and I'm sure that the FAQ will clear it all up. I also I also think that it'll help kind of reel in the power of that score immediately. So it'll still be super easy, but thanks.
Yeah, the double dipping it makes it more egregious.
Yeah, it is. You still gotta have both cards in your hand, so I get it. But thanks for your opinion. I know it's just been a hot topic in our little group here as we contemplate it. So. Well, awesome. So again, you want to run us through the details of the event?
Yeah, for sure. So the SoCal Open Warhammer Underworlds Grand Clash will be held October 26th and 27th. I think it's important to note that we are doing a 2-day Grand Clash, so we'll have a true undefeated winner no matter how many players show up. I mean, if there's 300 players show up, obviously we're not going to get a true winner, but you're going to play up to 7 rounds if we need to. We'll make a call on day 2 of how many rounds we actually need to play to determine a true undefeated winner. So there's not going to be this 4 guys go undefeated and 2 guys make the cut. Everybody's going to play until we have an undefeated winner. So 4 games on Saturday, up to 3 games on Sunday. And yeah, that's it. Information is available on frontlinegaming.org. and .com, I think, and we'd love to see anybody who wants to win the Grand Clash prize package come out and play.
Well, fantastic, and we all appreciate you leading the charge in the 2 days. I know that you were one of the first Grand Clashers to announce that, so it's very refreshing to see the community moving that way and getting a true champion for an event instead of 400 people, or I'm exaggerating, but 100 and some people cutting to 2. So
yeah, it's weird, and you can see GW going to that 2-day model too. And I'm trying to convince Reese that for LVO that we need a 2-day Grand Clash with enough rounds for an undefeated. I mean, an undefeated champion. Because if there's 100 people and you do 4 rounds, it's just not cool. You wouldn't do that in 40K. You wouldn't have 4 or 5 or 6 people undefeated and then the top 2 play and everybody else screw you.
Yeah, exactly. So
it doesn't reflect the especially with the way the tiebreakers are scored in Underworlds, and there's a whole controversy over that part too. But if you've gone on, after 4 rounds and you've gone all wins, you should have a chance to play for in my mind, all the marbles.
Yes, and I completely agree. If you've won all your matches, you should still be in the dance at the end.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Well, fantastic. We really appreciate your time. And for our listeners, get out there at frontlinegaming.org. A lot of events at the SoCal Open, not just in Shadespire and Underworlds, although we are keen to think that the Underworlds Grand Clash is the best event. So check it out. Check it out. And once again, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate your time.
And we're back. So this segment is going to be a hot dice lightning round. As we mentioned earlier, I ran into some technical difficulties when we were trying to record earlier in the week. And since then, there's been a ton of information that's come out about Apocalypse. There have been some leaks about the Power Unbound expansion for Warhammer Underworlds.
Power Unbound.
And the latest errata and FAQ have come out for Underworlds. More information from the Journal's Handbook 2019 has come out, and Games Workshop gave us some preview information about the new repulsor and the Scorpius tank for the AdMech. So we were previously planning on, kind of digging a little deeper into Apocalypse and Power Unbound and the General's Handbook. But now with more information, we're going to kind of do a lightning round. So in lieu of taking forever to finish an episode, we're just going to kind of hit some highlights and go through with our thoughts. And we'll probably end up rambling anyway, because as we've mentioned, we don't have our timekeeper. Yeah, and it's what we do.
Yep. I mean, you just rambled for legitimately 45 seconds there explaining how you weren't going to ramble.
Yep. See? Exactly. And then you rambled about how I rambled about how I wasn't going to ramble.
Remember that time where we just rambled?
It nailed it. So anyway, Apocalypse. A lot of information. Danny's Bay, Becca Scott, did her how to play Apocalypse. If you haven't seen the video, you should watch it. It gives a really good rundown of the different phases, kind of how actions work, and things like that. But Jason, what do you think, man?
It's all right. It's good. Yeah.
Is it getting there?
It's definitely getting there. I'm excited about. Like, I'm not an Apocalypse player. Like, the few games of Apocalypse I've played in the past, I can honestly say were like bad. It just was not fun to get that many models for me on the board and wait forever and then have my things die, and it just seemed to lack strategy. But this new version, I'm excited to try it out. Like, I think it's streamlining things. I really like the way that they're doing the damage, where I actually get to shoot with my big guns or whatever unit it is. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm curious to see how down the line maybe the D12 makes its way into other games. So
yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know what's going on with the Apocalypse, so it's two sets of dice. So the D6 is still used for your to hit roll, and then instead of a D6 on the to wound roll, you're going to roll a D12, and then there's an armor save roll, and depending on what kind of damage you've taken, whether it's like a small blast or a large blast, you're either going to roll a D12 to take your armor save or roll a D6 to take your armor save. And so there are some units that might hit on a 6 or they might save on a 6. And when you're first looking at that profile, you're like, on a D6, this unit's only going to save on a 6? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it turns out that's a D12. So a 6 up on a D12 is better than 50% of the time. Yep. So it adds some granularity to your ability to wound things and your ability to take armor saves, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I think also for me, like we've had a style of AP, like we've had strength forever on weapons. We've had AP or some sort of like armor negating special rule for a very long time. This just makes like your big weapons that much more powerful, and like it allows armor like to differentiate itself. So like a Space Marine, I think, is actually going to feel like a Space Marine on a 6+. That's 50% chance on a normal wound, and you still have a chance when you get hit with like the mega boomstick, right? Where people that have no armor don't have that same luxury when they're hit twice or they're hit with something with a heavy damage ratio or rate. And it's I think it's just a cool play mechanic that I'd love to see expanded on, and I'm excited to check it out in Apocalypse. So
words
are tough.
They are tough. So Trace, any big takeaways for you?
Jason hit on a lot of the ones that I was going to talk about, because I think we're excited about the same stuff, which is like being able to play with all the units that you want to play with. It's not just limited to if you have a Warlord Titan or if you have Bane Blades and all this other stuff. Like, you can actually play Apocalypse with all the stuff that you have, and you don't feel like you're just outclassed the whole time.
Yeah.
And the way that they've designed the damage stuff, I think, is really, really intelligent on their part, because it allows you to play with your toys before you have to pull them off the board. And then watching the playthrough that Becca did, just the way that she describes like the command bubbles too, about how you can have units that will rout if they're outside the command bubble and they've taken enough damage to lose casualty, like to have casualties. They just run away. I just think that's a really interesting way that you can kind of keep the strategy there too, because you want to try and keep everybody in cohesion, like your detachments in cohesion, because it's activated by detachments. I don't know if we touched on this or not, but every detachment activates instead of like you activating a unit, you activate a detachment, and then your opponent activates a detachment. So if you guys are interested in that stuff, the playthrough is actually really well done. So yeah, I mean, I just think it's going to be a cool way to play with big things and not feel bad experiences, I think.
Yeah.
Because Lord knows I've got some cool stuff I like to play with.
Right.
Yeah, and it adds this element, like, regular 40K is a lot of target priority, but that as you're shooting, that is like resolved as you go, right? Mm-hmm. So you like, oh, I've shot 3 units into this person, it's gone and it's dead. I can move on to the next. Mm-hmm. In APOC, you're gonna have to decide, like, yeah, I might have put 2, 3, 4, 5 blast markers onto that, Warlord Titan, but he may make some saves. So do I need to put more? And then it just gobbles up more and more of your fire. And I do believe that that's why troops will actually serve a purpose in Apocalypse, because like you're going to have to, it's going to soak up fire from all the big guns. I'm excited to try it. And I actually think, like, my first impressions is it may be more enjoyable than playing 40K, because it seems more turn interaction.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was actually something that I was going to touch on too, was the fact that we may try it and like it better than actual 40K.
Yeah.
So, but I'm excited to see what's going to happen with it.
Yeah, it should be good. Yeah, I think the thing that excites me the most is the fact that there's a damage phase. So all of the wounds are saved for at the end of the battle round.
Yep.
So, even if your model has a billion blast markers on it, you still get to activate it. You still get to shoot with it or fight with it or what have you. And then at the end, then you drop it off.
Yep.
Which is pretty exciting. Cool.
And then also building the deck. We'd be remiss to not mention that.
Yeah, that's true. So. Yeah. So, there's a deck of orders and commands that you get. It looks like they're similar to the stratagems that we have in 40K now.
Yep.
Yeah, but you pick and draw, where stratagems you kind of select as you go. This is like you're going to draw every turn, which is very similar, but there's going to be some cool strategy, as we all know. We love some deck building games, right? So it's a pretty cool element.
Yep.
And I read the one on the Demons book today, or the Demons faction, that like the Denizens of the Warp from that. You basically get to take a unit that was destroyed, and you roll a d12, and I can't remember what the roll was, but you roll a d12, and like if you pass a certain roll, you get to put that unit back on the board. Instead of just deep striking, you just get to put that unit back on the board. And if it fails, that card's not lost. You just put it right back into your deck, but you have to like shuffle your deck up again. So there's always a chance for you to have that to use if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, speaking of powerful cards, let's move on to the next topic. Power Unbound. Segue. So this is the upcoming expansion for Warhammer Underworlds. Pre-order tomorrow. We're recording Friday night, so pre-order tomorrow. Going live. I think some of the more well-known content creators in the Underworlds community have their hands on some of the cards, so you can probably expect some articles, maybe videos about the cards going live tomorrow, in vein with the way that Games Workshop does things with pre-orders. So once the pre-order is live, then the content can come out. So I think we'll get a bigger picture, but from what we've seen so far, it looks like there's some pretty potent stuff in there. I made the really bad joke in the group chat. Trace was talking about how the cards seemed pretty powerful, and I went with the obvious. Would you say that their power was unbound?
Unbound.
I'm so clever. So one standout for me, there's an upgrade for Yelthari's Guardians for Onslaying, where she gets a shooting attack. It's range 4, 3 hammers, 2 damage, and ignores dodges. It's one use only, so there's a payoff there, or a price to pay. But like that's just one example of several cards that have been leaked so far that look like they're going to be pretty potent. So yeah.
Having just recently played Stormsires, there's a bunch in here that I was just like, they didn't need any help.
Yeah. And then the FAQ helped them a lot too. So
yeah. And then so the focal formation I thought was really interesting because it's a objective score card that you do after an activation.
It's immediate. It's the
it's
first
score immediately.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So like
immediately.
So I mean, it would require you to like. So I would push somebody going into my phase onto an objective and then finish a move on the objective, so that the activation was finished with them on the objective, and then you just score immediately 1 glory, just for having Rastus and Amos holding objectives.
Yeah.
I could see it potentially being not useful at a certain point because typically like you're trying to push one of those guys out there to try and kind of body block a little bit. So there's pros and cons to it, but I think it's an excellent card, like as far as like ease of scoring. And then obviously Sorcerer's Flourish is pretty bananas.
Oh yeah.
So for those who don't know what that is, I'll read it. It's reaction. Play this after resolving a spell cast by a friendly fighter that damaged one or more enemy fighters. Choose one of those enemy fighters that fighter suffers 1 damage. So it's just here's my sphere of Hish or sphere of Shaiish or whatever. Actually, here's 1 damage, and as a reaction, here's another damage.
Yeah, but so here, this is what I have, and I may be reading it wrong. I mean, it does have my homeboy on the picture, Lord Voldemort from Harry Potter, and
he's snapping his finger and burning a source.
It is, but it says resolving a spell cast, right?
Yep.
Like so that is a gambit and it's a spell attack action.
Correct.
So this is like trap, pit trap, twist a knife, but for spells.
Right.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And then the other one that kind of caught my eye was Warning Shot, which is the first one that I've seen that rewards you for missing an attack.
Yeah.
From range 3.
Yep. Which
needs to be in every deck I have.
Yep. Yeah. You do miss a lot of those range 3 attacks.
So, but
I'm a big fan of Warning Shot as well for for the listeners just update. I've been playing a lot of Eyes of the Nine, and that really helps me, with the two Dangle Bros, Narvia and Turash. There we go.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I'll run in, I'll score a calculated risk and take a shot and hopefully miss.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That rhymed on purpose.
Nice. Solid. So,
and then for those Mollog players, I'm just going to shout this one out there too. Spark of Sentience. It's an upgrade for the Stalag Squig. Reaction after this fighter's activation, draw a power card.
Oh, get out of here.
So he's actually super useful if with that upgrade on. I don't know if you're going to... Actually, you might have to replace something now since you've got too many restricted cards with your Tome of Glory or your Tome of Offerings, Mollog players. So might need to find a more generic upgrade to use.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I mean, all these cards are good, but besides the 2 that I just gushed over, there's 2 other ones. So I like Overpower only because that is like Peerless Fighter for magical attacks.
Yep. I'm a fan.
Yeah, you're a fan. You're a fan.
But
not. I mean, I like when they're when you roll crits, and I intend to do that. It does suck that it's only 1 glory, unlike Heroes Fighter where it's 2, but at the same time, you're rolling magical dice, and it's 1 or more. It's not 2. So
Doesn't require you to have 2. It just requires a crit.
Yep. And you want to roll crits on your spells with Yothari anyway, so
that's right.
might as well.
And then the other one that I think is going to take a little bit of time for the community to really pick up, and it's only going to be on fringe decks anyways, is Spirit Bound, which is like an upgrade, and you put it on anybody, and they're always considered to be a supporting fighter for attacks. And there are a lot of glory cards or objectives that have 2 supporting fighters, have just different interactions with supporting fighters, right. And that card can really help you score that.
No, that's true.
So
I considered that. Yeah,
I was thinking Gits, you can charge and scurry into 1, and then have this on somebody in the back, and you have 2. There's something there. I think it's just going to take some exploration, and plus it can really help with accuracy with warbands like the stupid dreaded Moloch. So.
Oh gosh, I didn't even think about that one.
Yep, you just put that on the Stalag Squig too, and now he's got an automatic supporting fighter. Or the Spite Shroom. I would put it on the Spite Shroom because I'm usually, if I play Moloch, I'm usually putting the Stalag Squig in my opponent's territory anyway.
Yeah. Jeez. Yep. Potent stuff.
Yeah, these cards seem a lot better than the last, the Leaders upgrade pack, so I'm interested to see the rest of them.
I mean, I don't see a Raptor Strike in there anywhere.
Thank God.
Just here, free damage from 4-way. Just take it.
Dang it.
Yep. Well, while we're on the Underworlds train, why don't we go ahead and hit the errata and the FAQ. Errata and designer's commentary, I think is what they call it now. So,
ding dong, relics are dead.
Oh my gosh.
Why you gotta make me sad?
It is sad.
It is sad that style of play is lost. But it had become, again, really easy for that to be used again. I think that belongs just in fun play. It just creates a really feel bad experience, I think, for players. It's a lot of work to do to get it to pull off, but
yeah, I would agree that when you get the relics out and you're just scoring glory for no good reason, except you got some cards out, it definitely can go bad. My thing is I'm fine. It's okay. I was working on a relic deck for Godsworn that I could get 4 relics out without actually spending any glory. But the issue I have is just ban them. If you don't want that play style in the game,
agreed.
just ban the cards. Because now you have, what? We have to get 12 glory? 12 glory to get?
You have to get 12 glory in order to score those other... that's that'll be hard to do.
It's hard to do, except in turn 3. I don't know. There's still a way to do it. I'm not going to say that they're completely useless.
Oh yeah.
But it becomes extremely hard, and if you're that dead set against having that playstyle, just ban the cards.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yep. No, I'm with you.
Calculated risk. Let's talk about that one.
How it didn't change?
Yep.
How it's not restricted?
It's not restricted.
And how they confirmed the way that it's played?
Correct. Because if you move through a damage hex and survive, you've moved through, and then you can also move back in, and it does not, you still score the card. Because you moved through a hex, survived, and then came back in.
Yep. So what Trace is talking about is the fact that you can score calculated risk and martyred in the same activation.
Yep.
No, you cannot.
Yes, you can.
Page 5. Question.
Uh-oh.
If I meet the conditions of scoring a score immediately objective during an attack action, do I score that card during that attack action and draw another objective card immediately. Though that part, the last part's in a parentheses or something. No, when you meet the condition for a score immediately objective during an action, you score the objective after that action has been resolved. If that action is part of a charge action, you do not score the objective until after the charge action has been resolved. So, for me, calculated risk, you have to move through a damage hex, survive, and survive. If you move back in, he's now dead.
Oh.
Because you would not score that score immediately until after the action is completed.
So, okay, fair. However, in the designer's commentary, page 8, Universal Cards Objectives, Calculated Risk. Question. Can I score Calculated Risk if the fighter's move action takes them through a lethal hex, which they survive, and then into a second lethal hex that takes them out of action? Answer, yes.
Yes.
Oh, wait. So you mean there's another conflicting statement within these two documents? Oh.
Well, so I think what yours is saying is that you don't score Calculated Risk until after the move action has completed.
Yeah.
So you
total
wouldn't be
activation.
you wouldn't be able to score it during the move and potentially draw into Martyred and then score Martyred.
Yeah.
You would have to have both Calculated Risk and Martyred in hand to score them both.
Yep.
But what this question and answer is saying is that you can score Calculated Risk and Martyred off of the same activation.
Yeah.
Mm.
On that same page, though, is a question and answer that makes me angry.
How about them reactions? Huh?
I guess we'll wait for it. We're still waiting for it. We're just building suspense as to what exactly he was talking about.
He's talking about the change to keep them guessing. Is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I think we might have lost Jerod. So the change to keep them guessing.
He's back.
Is he back?
I'm back. How much of my rant got lost?
You lost probably
all
20,
of it.
30 seconds. Yeah.
It was
I didn't hear any of it.
You're like, and there's something else on that page that.
And I said, how about them reactions though?
Oh, nice. Like... And then I was gone. Okay. So apparently my technical issues are not over. Anyway, so I won't go through the whole thing again. I'll keep it short. Reactions on fighter cards do not count as actions for keep them guessing. So no more keep them guessing from any of the reactions on Yulthari's Guardians. No more keep them guessing from Scurry. Yep.
Yeah, I mean that like the Scurry was actually like they've kind of changed from a previous ruling. So it is cool that they'll go back and make changes. And I'm all for it. I think that the way that they're going with fighter cards is they are printing more and more reactions on the fighter cards instead of actions, which, like, let's face it, man. Like, that card was way too easy for that specific faction to score. And with universals, it has to be kind of consistent throughout how the factions score them.
That's fair.
So what else has stood out?
So I haven't dug into it fully, so it's going to take some time, and we'll probably hear from other people. But it looks like they're tightening up the reaction windows.
They are.
Yeah.
So I think there was one, I'm trying to find it, about
the aggressive defense, my turn.
Yeah, well, so they went through that in detail.
They did,
which is good. But there was one about score like a spell action and an attack action where you wouldn't be able to score both or something. I can't remember now that I'm trying to read through how many ever pages of document this is now. I saw it and then I lost it. Yeah.
It's all right.
You're talking about the reaction windows, and then
Yeah.
it says it's before the roll. Is that the one?
Yes. So that was there was that one. It was before dice are rolled and then before the attack roll, and those are the same window. But there was another.
It was potion, rage, and aggressive defense.
Right.
For reactions taken during an attack action are before any dice are rolled and before the attack roll, the same reaction window. Yes. And then they've also reclarified after. So do reactions that happen after attack actions, example pit trap, share a reaction window with reactions like my turn, since they both happen after the action despite the fact they have different conditions. Pit trap requires a fighter to be driven back, and my turn requires the action to have damage done. Yes, they have the same reaction window.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, they are trying to dial in that reaction window, and really what it's coming through is you're ending up with before, during, and after. And when they as they're defining these, it's that is the action. So if it's before the action or after the action. So it should clear up things, Ghoulish Pact and whatnot, is because it's an after. My turn is after. So after you complete the whole action of Ghoulish Pact, that's when my turn would kick in. So.
Yeah.
At least that's the way I understand it. So.
No, I mean, that sounds right. I'm glad they're doing that, because I think that I know that just the three of us have had many debates about when certain things happen. So
yeah,
it's an excellent catch on their part.
Right.
I mean, they've clarified keep chopping, which makes me sad because I used to like that card.
Yeah, I really liked it for the dwarves too, for the sky dwarves, but.
So keep chopping is make 4 attack actions within activations. So things like my turn and your power step or aggressive defense, because it's after the action, do not count as being in an activation.
Right.
So they do not count towards keep them chopping, which really makes keep them chopping of pretty much you have to attack 4 times with 4 activations.
Right.
What about reactions that are on the fighter card or an upgrade?
It depends on if it's after. So if it's after an attack action, it's no longer in the activation, so it would not count.
So Enslain, for example, she gets to fire a second arrow. When does that happen?
It's after the attack action.
Okay.
So it is not during an activation.
Okay.
Yep.
But so it's the reaction of what's the one where if you get charged or they're in adjacency and you shoot.
Stand and shoot.
Stand and shoot counts.
Yeah. Because it's within the activation.
Yep.
Okay.
So.
Yep. Another fan favorite of ours that got some serious FAQ, some serious question and answering done was Baffling Illusion. Turns out we were playing it right all along.
Yep.
So Baffling Illusion no longer prevents charges. I like the comment at the end that note that a fighter that makes a charge action while Baffling Illusion is in effect will also gain a move token. So they get a charge token
and a move token.
That's right. So it can...
It can completely shut down Mollog in one activation.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, he can still swing now if he's inspired, but...
Right, but, he at least won't be able to move around anymore.
Yeah.
Does it say get a move token or it counts as making a move?
No, you gain a move token.
And it's considered to be they're considered to be making a move action.
So that means they would count as 2 separate for keep them guessing? It would be a move and a charge?
I don't know. When Baffling Illusion is in effect and a fighter would make a move action and therefore scatters as described on Baffling Illusion, are they still considered to be making a move action? Yes. But it doesn't say have made a move action. So I would say no.
Okay.
But Faneway Crystal and Inescapable Vengeance, the Briar Queen upgrade, negate Baffling Illusion. Yep. So, interesting things. One thing that is worth noting is that Gambit spells that do damage require line of sight.
That's a change. That's new.
Yeah, I kind of like that a little bit though. Like it's like it completely goes against the way the game was designed from the get-go, but at the same time it helps with blocking line of sight boards, and I think it may be a boost to objective play just because objective play was so difficult to do. Like you won't be able to, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but Abyssos's Withering, where they take you have to be able to see the objective to cast it now, right? So, or no?
Don't know that would apply to that because technically that doesn't do damage. Withering removes reduces the wounds.
Oh yeah, to reduce Withering to reduce. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Abyssos's Unmaking, which is take it away.
But I think that still doesn't apply because it's not a spell that does damage to a fighter. So I think that you can still pull the objective up without any issue because it doesn't actually target something and do a wound to it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the wording on it right now, which is really good radio.
It's all right. We're talking through it.
Well, I mean, regardless, even if it's
okay. In addition, if a spell requires you to choose a fighter or fighters, the caster must have line of sight to the fighter or fighters you choose.
Okay.
So it doesn't say objectives.
Nope. It says fighters.
You would resolve. Yep. Yeah, page 13, casting spells. So this is an errata to the casting spells rule. So some spells require you to choose one or more fighters, card spells, objective tokens, or hexes. Yep. In addition, so you must have line of sight if you're targeting a fighter or fighters.
Cool.
Yep.
I do like. I know I mentioned it with the Ghoulish Pack, but they do define that, like with Ghoulish Pack, can I play my turn or ready for action as reaction after my Ghoulish Pack resolves? Yes, you can play either of these reactions, but not both. So I'm very glad that has finally been, like, because people were trying to string them both together.
Right.
Glad that they defined that.
Yeah.
I mean, all in all, like, there's a lot of good clarification in here. I don't think it makes our game any simpler, but it was definitely needed to breathe some life back into the game, change up the cards, and really they're starting to further dial in the few rules interactions where we had questions on. So
right. And then the new restricted.
Yeah, the new restricted deck.
Tome of Offerings is restricted, which makes sense.
Yep.
And then I've seen a lot of pushback on Longstrider. Chase, any thoughts on why Longstrider would be restricted?
Oh, because super easy for Monologue to score.
Yep. So it goes back to the no objective should be like significantly easier for a specific faction to score, or if it is, maybe it should be restricted.
And you can use calculated risk as like the gauge. Like that is extremely easy. It's even more easier after the quote unquote clarification in these erratas and designer commentary. Like it is extremely easy for every faction to score, but every faction to score. Yep. Where Longstrider Molag was like the only one that was easy because he controlled it. I know that the Flying Dwarfs had a card that could do it. And then, of course, like Skaven and Skeletons, like it can be done, but you don't control it as well.
Right. Yep. I mean, there's always ready for action or the Potion of Grace, but I think it makes sense. Maybe they should have restricted keep them guessing instead of removing the ability for reactions to do it. That could be biased. I don't know.
Maybe a little biased.
That's a little biased.
It's probably a lot biased. Let's be real. Yeah.
I mean, those overall, I think that the changes, they do a good job with those for the most part, because it's a lot of rules to keep track of, and it's not just in one spot anymore. It's on all these different cards, and so it's just a lot of different places to try and keep up. So
Yep.
I appreciate their efforts.
Yep. That's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Any other standouts or comments before we move on to the next lightning strike?
No, not. I'm sure in future episodes we'll have more to talk about, but there are so many in here, and we have to get. There'll be more fun interactions to come. So
Right. Well, and once all the Power Unbound cards get released and we've had some time to play with those, I'm sure we'll have some thoughts and comments on that. So, so this one's a little bit more for me and Trace, but General's Handbook 2019.
Yep. Whoop whoop.
Yeah. So we talked earlier in the season about how I'm working on Stormcast Eternals with favoring the Vanguard chamber, and most of the points on that dropped, including the long strike crossbows. So that's definitely going to be something that Trace and I are going to have to look out for. So long strike crossbows are they hit on 2s, wound on 3s. They do 2 mortal wounds if they hit on a 6. Instead of, and then they're 2 damage, like AP 1 or 2 or something stupid. Anyway,
for those just to put it in perspective, for anybody listening to this that has a little bit of Age of Sigmar knowledge or doesn't really know about this stuff, it can kill any of the most powerful models in the game in 1 round of shooting.
Yeah, a unit of 9 does something like 24 wounds.
Yeah. Unsaved wounds.
Unsaved wounds, yeah.
Yeah.
Against the hardest targets, which includes our Bloodthirster. So It's going to be something that we're going to have to plan for in the Age of Sigmar doubles in Nova, is the idea that 9 little dudes with their sniper crossbows are going to be popping into our backfield and trying to snipe out our Bloodthirster.
Yeah.
So,
you're going to have to really plan for that.
Yeah. But on the positive side, Trace, what's going on with the beasts?
For our entire force, as far as like they always do like an errata to the GHB a couple weeks after, so we may still see some points changes post, but nothing in our list went up. Nothing, which is awesome. If anything, we gained a few points, so I'm hoping that we can get it to where we can start with an additional purchased command point. That is one thing that they changed in this edition, where you cannot purchase more than 1 command point. So you can't. Oh. So if you have battalions, you get a command point for those. Like those are still considered. So the command point is kind of like I look at it as in the value of what you pay for the battalion, right? So, right. So like the one that we're running costs 190 points. Or the one that I'm running for the beasts costs 190 points, but it really costs 140 because I'm getting an extra command point for 50, which is what GW really values those command points as.
Right.
So you cannot have more than 1 quote unquote purchased command point for starting underneath your desired points level.
Gotcha.
In the new book. So that's just something to think about for us. But I'm hoping that with some of the changes that they make, if we do have the chance to do that, then we can start the game with a couple of command points and guarantee that we get a unit that we want to get out on turn 1 to help us box out those nasty shooting things. Caradron Overlords dropped a whole lot, so we'll probably see those at Nova. All their boats went down. All the troops went down just about. So there's some interesting builds that I've been seeing some people talk about that may pop up there too. Iron Jaws, we'll probably see some Iron Jaws because Iron Jaws got some pretty hefty points drops Trying to think of any other high level things.
Yeah.
All the new missions are different, so all the missions that are in there, they have mostly the same objectives, but every single one of them that had the same objectives has had their deployment changed.
Oh, great.
So, like you still have Knife to the Heart, but Knife to the Heart now starts with like a different deployment. So it's not the same quote unquote scenario as it was.
Yeah.
Which is good. I like it because
That's cool.
I like the way they do that because they keep it fresh. But yeah, so those are kind of my high level thoughts. Did you have anything that you wanted to kind of touch on other than just the Stormcasts?
No, yeah, just the Stormcast. The Vanguard's going down, so that'll make things interesting, I guess, post Nova when I actually get to play them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's always exciting to see them keep things fresh, to shake up the meta. It'll be interesting to see kind of what shakes out in the next couple of months as we lead up to Nova.
I am definitely going to be keeping my ears to the ground of the competitive Nova or the competitive Age of Sigmar scene to kind of prepare mentally for what we might see.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Speaking of Nova, they doubled the number of tickets that they're allowing for the doubles event. So
nice.
We may actually have a larger portion of that hall than we did last year because there was easily 40 people playing.
Yeah, you probably had like a quarter of the hall last year, and I think
we'll probably have like half this year.
Yeah, half.
Most likely.
That's exciting.
So that'll be interesting to see and see how we can do with that many more contestants injected into the thing. I'm excited. Yeah.
That's cool. All right. So last lightning round. This is really more for Jason and Trace. So some rules previews for the Repulsor Executor. Is that right?
Sounds right.
Repulsor Executioner.
Executioner.
Yeah, and then the Scorpius Dune Rider or Scorpius. What's the tank?
I can't remember.
Oh, come on, Trace.
Sorry.
Dune Rider and Scorpius Disintegrator.
Disintegrator. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So, Jason, how about that Executioner?
I'm real excited about it. I mean, it is definitely going to fill a need for the Space Marines and being able to just shoot large baddies. If they don't necessarily have a ton of tools to do that.
It'll definitely do that.
Right? So it's like the large laser destroyers like range forever and a day. It's twice heavy 2, so shooting twice, strength 10, AP -4, D6. But here's the kicker: is that when you're rolling in damage, if it goes through, you're automatically going to have D3. Period.
Yeah.
So
it is a more reliable neutron laser, is what it is.
Yeah.
Because the neutron laser on the Onagger Dunecrawler for AdMech is exactly the same profile, so it's strength 10, -4 AP, D6 damage, no lower than a 3 ever, right?
Yeah.
But it's a D3 shot weapon instead of just a flat 2 shot weapon.
Right.
And it doesn't get double shots if it sits still, like your new one does.
Yeah, so that's the other cool thing is it has kind of like, the Imperial Guard heavy tanks. If you do not move or move less than half its move characteristic, you can shoot its main gun twice. So I'm shooting 4 shots, strength 10, AP 4, damage 3 plus up to 6 maybe. Like that's a lot of wounds at a really high AP.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So you're saying you're probably going to build it with the heavy laser destroyer instead of the macro plasma incinerator?
Yeah, I mean the macro plasma incinerator, like it's gonna serve a function. I mean it's a heavy D6, so you're a little less reliable, but shooting it twice, you could have up to 12 shots with a plasma gun. I'm sure there are some applications for that people like that. But I really want the heavy destroyer. I just like the way it looks. I may magnetize it to put the plasma on it, but I highly doubt it. Now I just need to see how many people it can carry. So it's probably gonna be like 5 or 6, because it does say that it sacrifices some of its transport capacity
for a murderously powerful turret weapon.
Yep.
That's a direct quote. Yeah. So given that it has some capacity, what are you thinking you would put in it, if anything?
Honestly, like, I mean, your first thing is like, oh, it's transport, get it up the board. But I think that this is more of like a backfield style unit. So maybe just regular Marines that you can insulate so they don't die to normal firepower. Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe I just run them right up there and shove whatever's in there down your throat.
Nice. Could work.
It could, because like with the other weapons, it still has like the traditional, Gatling cannon style and some heavy bolters and stuff like that on it. So it still can get in there and just be a menace to infantry as well. There's nothing stopping you from running up, and I'm sure it's going to have the same repulsor stats and stuff where, it has fly, and if someone goes to charge it, it's negative modifier to their charge roll. So there's no hindrance, and if it holds 6, you could still put some aggressors with flamers in there and get them up there. The problem is the more and more you put into that tank, the more and more of a threat it becomes, and it's still going to be on I'm assuming it's still going to have a D3 save, or D3 3+ save. So you don't want to give them every reason to shoot it,
right?
But I'm excited to get it on the table and blow up some knights.
Nice.
Just put Might of Heroes on it. You'll be fine.
There you go.
Make it toughness 9. You're fine.
It would help a lot against a lot of the anti-tank weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So what about them Scorpii?
The Scorpii, plural. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually, really intrigued by both. The Dune Rider moves 12, which is a little bit more than I thought it would be. I figure it would be in the more of the 10 range, but getting an extra 2 inches out of it is nice. And it has a infantry shredding set of guns, which I was joking about earlier today.
Shredding.
So it has a total of a twin heavy stubber on it and 2 heavy stubbers. For those of you listening that know what a heavy stubber does, it's just a bolter. It's just a bolter. Strength 4, 1 damage, no AP. It's got a 36-inch range, I think, on those. But they're not infantry shedding. But 12 shots total is nice. It's a decent amount of firepower. But the 10 transport capacity is nice, and just them confirming that it's not just limited to Skitarii, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the models that you really want to put in there are going to be like Electro Priests and stuff like that. What I'm waiting to find out, though, is whether or not it's considered to be open-topped. Because if it is, then that makes it a lot more interesting from a firepower point of view, because you can have your Skitarii doing drive-bys.
That's true.
So, which would be infantry shredding.
Yeah.
If you have a unit of 10 Skitarii in there and 3 of them have plasma calibers and they're all shooting, there's 6 plasma shots in addition to 21 additional arc rifle shots.
Yep.
I think that's or not arc rifle, but radium carbine shots coming out of there. That's a lot of shots, especially when those radium carbines automatically do 2 wounds on a roll of 6 to wound. That can really convert you some damage. So I'm interested to see if that's the case for that. And as far as the heavy tank goes, it's got some interesting stuff on it. I think it does not get to shoot twice if it doesn't move more than half. That's okay. But it's got a pretty decent missile launcher on it. That's on every variant of it. D6 shots, strength 7, minus 1 AP, I believe, and D3 damage. -2? Okay. I'm not looking at it on the site, so I'm just kind of recalling it from memory. But I mean, that's a nice little staple weapon. And then the cannon, I forgot the name of the cannon. The
Fahrenheit cannon.
Fahrenheit cannon. That's right. It seems pretty nice. Good range. 3 shots flat. Strength 8, -3 AP, and flat 3 damage. I'll take that all day. I think that's a good solid.
Flat 3 damage.
The flat 3 is awesome. That's the second weapon in the army that allows you to do a flat 3. So like if you have a nice gun line setup where you have 3 honor dragoon crawlers and 3 of those, I mean that's a lot of firepower going down range. And it frees up the dune crawlers to do something that they do well already, which is to like use the Icarus autocannons and stuff that they have, the more anti-air. It doesn't require you to have those and have, doesn't require you to have 6 of those to do that. You can now put these that are more mobile into that role where they can move around and shoot, where they can just sit at the back and just shoot Skyfire stuff. And then it's got 3 heavy stubbers on it. Watch out. There's that infantry shredding capability again.
Shredding.
And then it's got the other option, which I think is really interesting. It's you have to call the name out for me because I can't remember it. But it's
Bellicose energy cannon.
Yeah, the energy cannon. It doesn't require line of sight, which is really cool. It's 36-inch range, so on a platform that moves 12 inches a turn, I think that's going to be, you've got a 48-inch threat range. It doesn't require you to see anything, but it's strength 6, -1 AP, and flat 2 damage, and it's 3d3 shots. So no less than 3, but I mean up to 9 shots. I mean that's potential for 18 damage coming out of that weapon. I don't think it's really. I think it kind of sits in a weird place because like you don't really want to use it for anti-tank, and it's good for anti-infantry. Really, to me, it's a Primaris killer. Wounds Primaris really easy. Has a flat 2 damage, so when you get one through with that -1, it'll kill a Marine. I think that's I don't know why the AdMech would be shooting at the Space Marines, but but that's really kind of where it sits for me, is that kind of more elite infantry killer, just because of the flat 2 damage and forcing those saves. But I think that they're solid picks. I can't really give my 100% approval or denial until I see the points, though. If they make that transport 120 points for all 12 shots that it gets of infantry shredding firepower, I will not be purchasing. If it sits around the same points level as like a Chimera or a Rhino, sure. The 70, 75 point range, that's where it needs to be. Now, I will say I would buy it points wise for like the 90 to 95 range if it allows you to shoot out of the top of it. I will say that. But if it does not allow that, it needs to sit in the same price threshold as those 2 vehicles. And then the tank, I think, is going to be around the same as the Onager, which will be around the 120, 130 point range, probably, if I had to guess. So.
Does AdMech have any more or any other indirect fire options other than that?
Not really, which is interesting. So that's the first that they've gotten. So I think they're just trying to add a unit that brings them in line with a lot of the other forces that you can do that with. I know Death Guard have it because the Plague Burst Crawler can do it. Tyranids can do it.
Yeah, almost everybody else. That was going to be my point. Almost everybody else can do indirect fire. So that was kind of cool that one kit kind of serves 2 purposes. They didn't have a dedicated transport and they didn't have indirect fire. So
So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a cool vehicle. It's a little pricey as far as dollars go, though. It costs the same as an actual Land Raider, which is not cheap. But yeah, I mean,
the same can be said for the repulsor too. It's more money, and I'm still gonna buy it anyway. But it is sad that there was about a $10 to $15 what looks to be a price tax on these two units. So
yeah, they're like, hey, you bitched about this transport enough. We gave you one, but now you got to pay for it. So,
no.
But yeah, I'm excited about them. I think they're going to be interesting additions, and I'm interested to see what the rest of the rules look like, because those are just like the top level rules that we got today.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on them, Jerod? Like, I know that you're not really invested in either of them, but as an opponent, what do you think? Like, how do you prepare for those things?
Go buy the Apocalypse box so I have something to shoot.
Yeah, true. Yeah, go buy some more monsters.
There you
go. Just throw Gene Stealers at them. I mean, I feel like that's the standard Tyranid response. Just enough Gene Stealers will take anything down.
You'll just kill them with impaler cannons from across the board that we can't see.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. I'll do my indirect fire versus your indirect fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, the toughness 6 on the AdMech transport is a little interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to help keep the costs down.
Yeah, it will. And none of the AdMech vehicles are, I would say, are super tough.
Right.
Like you have the chicken walkers that are all toughness 6. They serve a very specific purpose.
Right.
The other version of that I don't really have any of at the moment, which is the more like gun platform for those. I would be interested in getting some of those at some point, but they have some interesting rules just because they can amp up their ballistic skill, which you're going to be able to do on these other vehicles. If they have this Skitarii keyword, you're going to be able to, like, especially since they have a broad spectrum data tether as they described, like you can push the ballistic skill on the infantry shredding firepower of the transport to 2+.
There you go.
So it'll be supremely accurate, but you're probably not going to get a lot of damage through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're going to be cool.
Yeah.
I will definitely get 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah.
Or if we do play a lot of Apocalypse, you'll need 12.
Yep. Probably.
I'll just bring my knights at that point.
Yeah. You'll need your knights and 12 of those transports.
2 separate detachments.
That's right. Now you get 2 activations per action phase. That, ladies and gentlemen, is called a callback.
Yes. I mean, I don't have anything else. I think we covered everything in the lightning round, which was still probably an hour.
Is saying. Now I can hear what they're saying. Were you guys able to hear me?
I was not.
Nice. Good times. Oh, technical difficulties. So good. Yeah, well, before things mess up any further, why don't we wrap this section up, take a break, and when we come back, we'll close out the show.
Sounds good.
Welcome back, and that'll round out our show. So, like always, we just want to say thanks for listening. We appreciate everybody that's taking the time to keep up with us, to come along with us on this journey and hear about what we're doing and taking our advice and ignoring it because it's garbage, or taking it to heart because it actually means something. If you haven't already, give us a shout and a follow on Facebook. We're Battle Mallet Podcast. We're Battle Mallet PCast on Instagram. Battle Mallet 1 on Twitter, and then we have a Discord server that hopefully we'll be frequenting again soon as things settle down from the seasonal changes and moves and birthdays and all things like
life.
Yeah, all things life. If you really like what you hear and you want other people who might not be specifically within our regional community to have a chance to hear it, one of the best ways to do that is to give us a review on Facebook or iTunes. So those 5-star reviews really put us in front of anybody that's looking for content. So any of those reviews would be greatly appreciated. So with that, I think we'll close out. Anybody have any closing thoughts? Any closing remarks?
Yeah, I'll give a closing remark. Stay tuned soon for one of our upcoming episodes. We did take some time to continue to working on that 40K narrative, and I'm real excited to get that kicked off, and especially with APOC coming.
Yeah, that should be good.
I was going to say something about the Heralds of the Apocalypse or something like that.
No, yeah. It could be good. Well, so this was Battle Mallet Podcast Episode 8, Arcane Implosion, coming to you from 3 Dads and a Big Dipper. This is Jerod signing out.
This is Trey signing out.
I'm Jason Tabled Noob Murray. Peace!
The Battle Mallet Podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. Music by Anno Domini Beats.
And he's gone. 3, 2.
We talk about current events, and we do it rapidly. I'm assuming I was dying. That I had no audio in the middle of that.
Yep. I'm just laughing because I timed it perfect.
Nice.